Hi, my name is Seth, and thanks for watching my videos. In this video, we're going to be talking about Cisco 5505. That is their security appliance. They call it the ASA 5505 or the Adaptive Security Appliance. And it's a series of different hardware specs that you can get. This is called the 55 series, 5500 series. So you got the 5510, the 5505, and some other ones. And all it is basically their firewall. It used to be the PICs, and I'm not sure if they still have the PICs or not, but it used to be the PIC, but now majority of the places use the ASA 5500 series. If you go onto their website, you can see that they have a lot of, if you type in 5505 or just 5500, you get some real good informative articles and how-tos. And this is the 5505. It's a small one. There is a it's labeled from port 0 to 7. So 0, which is the outside port, and the 7 internal ports, and the last two, 6 and 7, are PoE, power over Ethernet. So if you have a PoE access point or another switch or something, you can this will work over that. So the last two are PoE. When you buy the package, it comes with obviously all the cables you see here: Ethernet cable, the console cable, and the power cables, and a documentation which I don't think anybody really reads. And so this is how it looks like. You have the ISP connection, and so from your ISP you'll plug into the outside port, which is port 0, and then you have the 7 internal ports. As you can see, PoE phone. So if you have a Cisco phone, you can plug into, and your different devices you can plug this right into. And this will kind of go over the step-by-step tutorial as to how to do the initial installation, the firmware update, how to do VPN tunnels, and so on and so forth. So we're going to be talking about how to do all that, and I'll show you how to factory default this, how to upgrade the firmware on this, how to initially set this up, how to set up the internal network, and then the subsequent, how to set up the VPN tunnel, the VPN tunnels to different locations, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna cover this in this series of tutorials. So this is part 1 of the 5505 series, and this is the beginning. So I'll go ahead and minimize this. I've already connected my console cable, and I'm connected to my my device. When you open this up and it's brand new from the factory, you'll see it listed as Cisco ASA, and you can just hit enter. You hit EN to enable, and it's going to ask for a password. Well, there is no password. You just hit enter, and you see there's a little pound, a number sign after it. That means you're in the administrative mode. So here, the first thing you need to do, there's what I like about the 5505 is you can use the ASDM, which is their GUI portion, and which we're going to be using majority of the time. You can also use obviously the traditional CLI, the command prompt mode to program this, but I personally like doing the GUI, the ASDM, and that's what I've been setting up these 5505s in, and that's so I feel much comfortable with that. So the first thing you want to do is just make sure that in our case, if this is like this device was previously used, there was a previous configuration on this, which I want to do is I want to factory default it so I can have a fresh clean install, and then we'll use the GUI portion to connect to it. So the first thing I'll do is I'll hit config T to get into the configuration mode, and here I'll type in config factory dash default, and it's going to go through and basically set this to factory default. So you'll see it automatically switch the interface Ethernet ports, all the internal ports to open and kind of clear them and set up the internal network for us right here, 192.168 1.1 network. There you go. So now it's set. It's basic, clean, and factory defaulted. So now what I want to do is I want to save this factory default. So what I'll do is you say save. I'm sorry. Reload, save that config. No. Confirm. And so it's going to save this configuration into the running config. It's going to reboot it, and it's going to come up, and then we'll go ahead and connect to the GUI portion of it like it was brand new, and we'll go ahead and set this up from the start then. So now, if you remember, when we factory defaulted this, it set the internal interface to 192.168.1.1. That was the default. And so I open up the web browser and I type in https 192.168.1.1 and hit enter, and you're going to be prompted here to continue with the certificate. You have to make sure that obviously your internal network is set to 192.168 interface. If not, temporarily static IP your machine to it, or you can connect directly to the ASA device, because by default DHCP is enabled on it, and you can connect that way also. So now that we have this window open, I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. Alright, so it's using ASDM 6.3.3, I believe that's the latest. So we're going to hit run, open, and it uses Java to enable the GUI portion. Security interface, that's fine, hit yes, and it's going to prompt that a couple of times. Yes. Alright. Because there's no password, we're just gonna make sure that the password, username and password fields are empty, and hit OK. And okay, so as when we first log in, you'll see that there is basic information that it gives us on the screen. Tells us that our host name is Cisco ASA, which is the default. The version of the ASA we're using is 8.2.3. There's multiple revisions. There's a 1, there's a 2, there's a 3. There's a 8.3 out now, which is a little different, not too much, but the way how you're doing NATs are a bit confusing in it, so I kind of like using the 8.2. The ASDM version is 6.3, and that's what this is. We're using the ASDM version, the GUI portion. It has 512 megabytes of RAM built right in, 128 megabyte of flash memory. It's just basic information it gives you. Enable logging. It tells you, okay, this is my machine, I'm connected to it right now. So it kind of gives you basic information here. So the first thing you want to do, if you want to set this up for a specific location, your location or remote location, you can hit on configuration. Alright, you're going to click on interfaces, and here you'll see the two interfaces. Now you can double click on the internal interface and change it this way. You can use a static IP, you can obtain it from a DHCP if you have disconnected to a different, a DHCP, you can use that, or you can use PPOE is going to ask for the your username and password. Majority of the time you're going to be doing static or DHCP. So you can go through this way and configure it. That's the outside interface. Same thing, you can use PPOE, DHCP, or static IP. Your security level. So you can use this. Or what you can do is you can go to Wizard and say Startup Configuration, and just leave this as is, and just hit Next. And here you can call this your, test Cisco ASA. And it's basically whatever name host you want to give it. If you're setting this up for a specific location, you can set it up for a specific location and give it the name. Hit Next. Here, how many do you want to enable DMZ? By default, you can have 3 VLANs set up. If you don't set up the DMZ or the third VLAN now, it's going to be difficult to do later on, but it's doable. And you can see that it sets up the security levels automatically for you to 50, to 100, and to 0. Obviously, the outside interface security level is set to 0 because you don't want anything from the outside to come in. But you do want the internal stuff, which is set to 100 to go in, to go out. So it's up to you. I usually say no to this, but obviously it's going to be dependent on you how you want to set this. So we'll leave the default VLANs the way how it's set up here. We'll hit Next. Leave this as is. This is this allocation of different switches, switch ports. How do you want this set up? Which VLAN? Typically you want to leave this as default. Hit Next. Here, if you have a specific IP address for the outside you want to give this, you could, whatever your outside IP address may be, 12.20.59. 255, 255, 255, 0. I'm just making this up. Whatever. It could be anything. And the internal, if you want to leave 192.168, you're more than welcome to do it. Or you can change it to whatever, 10 dot whatever, 172.16. Oops. 172 dot whatever. I mean, you can change this to however you like. We'll just go with the default. Obviously a different subnet mask. Hit Next. Enable DHCP server on this interface. Well, you can set up DHCP by default. I believe it's up to 30 devices you can have. And depending on what your IP scope range might be, then you'll have the different beginning IP address and the different ending. We'll just leave this as a default. Hit Next. This is NAT configuration, how you want to set up NAT. And we'll go over this a little bit more. So I'll just leave this as default. Hit Next. Here, this is the which networks you want to allow to use the ASDM or SSH or Telnet remotely. This is for administrative access. So what you want to do here is, if you have changed the internal network, for example, if you guys are using 192 network at work and you've set this to 192, then you're fine. But if you changed it, you want to change this, then you're going to hit Add, and you're going to specify the inside interface. Whatever IP range that you have set it to, you want to set that here. If it was a 10.IP or 172.IP or whatever, you want to change. You want to make that change here to reflect it. And obviously, you want to do .0, so you want the whole network. So any devices within your network you're sitting on, you can connect then to your ASA and remotely administer it. you can also do outside. So if you're going to be remotely administering this, then you know what location you're going to be in, you can specify that IP or that range here, so you can remotely then administer this device. Very important to set this, or else you're not going to be able to access this. Like I said, by default it's set to the internal, and you're more than welcome to change that, but be aware though that you need to set this. We'll leave in our scenario where, since we're doing a test, we'll leave this as is. We'll hit next. Here it kind of tells you the overview. Okay, you know, make sure everything's set up. It is. Hit finish. It's going to go through and it's going to go ahead and save this to a running config, and may or may not reboot the machine. In our case, because everything is set as is, we didn't really make any changes. As you saw here, see how it changed the outside to the IP address we specified, and then down here you got this little save icon. Well, that means that you need to save this to the running config or to the flash. So we're going to hit save, and then it's going to go through and finalize that configuration for it. Now it's finalized. So once you go through this portion, then you need to come down to routing. Important. So you're going to click on static routes. Now if you have static routes, you need to set those here to different, you know, networks that you're going to be setting up, and you want static routes set, so you need to set those here. The most basic and important static route you want to set is your default gateway. Very important. So you're going to click on static routes, add. You're going to set this to outside, and you want anything to go to the gateway. So that means that anything that's connected on any IP range that's connected on this interface will be able to go out to the internet, and vice versa. Will be able to come from the outside to administer this device. So if I'm in the XYZ location and I want to remotely connect to this, well, if I don't have this set, I'm not going to be able to get to you. So you need to set your default your gateway IP here, and that's going to be obviously provided to you by your ISP, whatever the default gateway that they've given you. Whatever, you know, whatever it is that they've given you. So you need to make sure you set this, and then you hit OK, apply it. See, it's not, and then save it. Okay, so now that's set. So that means now we can remotely administer this device, and the users who are connected internally will be able to go out to the internet. As you can see, it changed our host name, and you can set your clock and your network time and so on and so forth. So that's all set. So the next thing you want to do after you give it the basics